So hreflang tells Google or any search engines which country that page or that website is targeted for, and also which language. In Asia, they have different search engines and they cater to different types of content. There are actually still some black hat SEO tactics that you have to use in order to be able to get your site to be searchable. For building up backlinks internationally, there are different tactics, and that's why I keep pressing on it's like a key component when it comes to being able to get backlinks effectively.
In today's episode, we're joined by Allison Wong. Allison is a multilingual digital marketing expert with over 9 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She excels in SEO, paid media, and web content creation. With her multilingual skills, Allison offers unique and insightful SEO tactics specifically tailored for international SEO. Allison is currently the Director of Marketing for Unicity International, and she has been featured in prominent industry publications. With a background that includes managing a multi-million-dollar marketing budget and producing significant ROI across global markets, Allison has managed large marketing teams that have supported over 80 countries in 17 different languages. In today's episode, we're lucky to have Allison join us to share her personal journey and to discuss the ins and outs of international SEO. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Eli Adams. Today's episode is brought to you by FireUsMarketing.com, where SEO solutions pave the way to digital excellence. Welcome to the show, Allison.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eli.
I'm real excited to have you on the show today. As you know, a lot of the audience knows we're doing a segment around SEO, and I'm excited to dive in with you around international SEO. I think that a lot of people don't really understand the intricacies of how SEO works in other countries, especially with different browsers and different search engines and different mobile experiences, all of that. So I'm real excited to dive in and learn more about that. But I want to also learn a little bit more about you on a personal level, and I think the audience does as well. But before you jump into that, I want to kind of explain how you and I know each other, and then we'll get into who is Allison. So over a decade ago, I was working at Young Living, and we had just barely started to build out the digital marketing team. We had a handful of people on the team. We were just doing SEO for Canada and the United States. We still didn't have paid advertising. We didn't do any like email marketing or anything at that point. And we got to the point where I had talked to the CMO, and or I guess at this time she was the senior vice president of marketing. She later became the CMO, and which we're also going to have Lindy on the podcast. I'm excited about that. But so I talked to Lindy and I was like, look, we really need to expand internationally. We have, all of these international markets, and I don't remember how many we had at that time, but we had a lot of international markets with ton of potential. And so we did some analysis and we said, Asia is really exploding organically. Like, what can we do to really like throw fuel on that fire and make it grow more? And so we opened up a position, and my proposal to Lindy was, let us hire somebody. We'll take one small market. We will prove that this process works. And if that works, you agree to expand to some of these other markets. And she gave the approval. And so we interviewed lots and lots of people. And Allison was one of those people that we ended up going with. And Allison, you came in and just completely blew us away. I remember that the insights that you had right off the bat were mind-blowing. But not just that, after 90 days of being with us, you were able to take, it was Hong Kong specifically, right, is what we worked on?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we worked on Hong Kong for 90 days. And within 90 days, we were able to pull data and prove organically that the work that you had done had pretty much paid for your whole entire year's salary.
So on top of what they were originally making.
Yes, on top of that. And so we took that back to Lindy and the CFO, and we said, we need to expand this bigger. And we ended up growing. You ended up growing into a leader over all of APAC, and we ended up having SEO over, we had leaders over all of LATAM. We had leaders over EMEA, all over the world. So by the time I left Young Living, we had coverage of the whole entire world, 80 different countries, 17 different languages, like we talked about in your intro. And all of that is thanks to you.
Not just me, but I will take part of the credit.
Well, you did most of the work, and you were an amazing leader. And by the time you left Young Living, you were the director over all of that digital space, which I really loved. I enjoyed working with you. And you were one of the strong arms on my team, really helping the company succeed. So I appreciate all that you did for me at that time. And I've loved seeing your growth beyond Young Living, and I'm excited to see it even in the future. So with that said, now everybody knows how we know each other. I'm real excited to dive in and learn a little bit more on a personal note about who is Allison. So why don't we start there? Tell us who you are, where'd you grow up, what'd you want to be when you were little? Walk us through that journey.
Okay, well, thank you, but I'm blushing, well, because of all the praises you have given. Because, well, as you might know, I'm pretty kind of like not really good at like showing off myself. That is kind of part of like also along with my Asian culture background. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. As a little kid, I know I'm not the smartest kid in the classroom, no matter what. Like I never have any academic like awards for my hard work. And honestly, growing up in Hong Kong, I mean, it's really competitive. You're like trying to get in a better school. The education system is very sophisticated, but also very competitive, knowing that you got to earn your place, really, basically anywhere. And so the reason why I was brought on over here out of nowhere in Utah, right, is because my mom thought, well, you're not like the smartest kid in Hong Kong. Maybe you will do better in the US. Because I was always like under the impression that like, hey, you need to have like good grades to get into a good school and in order to earn good money, right, in the future. But never been taught or even have that mindset of like what you need to do besides being like a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
Pretty stereotypical, but that is kind of like my story. So my mom sent me here to Utah to start really picking up and being very independent. And thank you, like as I go to college, I actually switched my major a handful of time. I don't even remember from like IT, from a teacher, but I feel like I am very interested in marketing. So I actually graduated in a degree with a degree of journalism and digital media.
Nice.
Back before when like digital marketing is a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or even has its own college degree. But then I got lucky enough to work and intern at 97th Floor,
Mm-hmm.
one of the bigger agency in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
where we serve different clients, and I learn a lot, pick up a lot, and also kind of just grew from there. And knowing that I want to just get into the space because
Yeah.
there's so much potential and there's like no right or wrong way to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here I am after all these years. Of course, I met you. That's when you brought me in house
Mm-hmm.
too,
Mm-hmm.
from working at an agency serving 10 and more clients at a month at a time
Mm-hmm.
to really serving one big client and being able to make a dent for corporate and also proving my worth.
Nice. Okay, so I remember you telling that story, and I'm gonna have you bring this up specifically because, a lot of times I've mentioned on this podcast that part of the reason I want to do this is to journal for my kids. Who was dad? What was he like? How did he interact with other people? And especially females in the industry, right? Because I have three daughters, and I want them to know, like, it's okay to be what you want to be. It's okay to be a mom if you want. It's okay to work if you want. It's okay to do both if you want. And I think you're a really good example of that. But selfishly, I want you to talk about the story about when you were younger, how you got yourself ready for school, you took yourself to school. I want details on that because I want my kids to listen to this because when they have such a cush life, such an easy life, and I want you to tell the story so I don't have to tell them. Tell the story about how it was, the expectations in Hong Kong, the expectations from your parents, how you got the tutor in school. Like walk me through that.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess one of the bigger stories to tell is that when I was in kindergarten, so around 6 year old or even 5,
Mm-hmm.
I would walk myself to school, to kindergarten, because my both of my parents work.
Mm-hmm.
I have an older sister who also by the time would be in high school, and we have early school just like here, but in order to make it less with less traveling, just because it's like a big city, just like New York and all that, I would because of the distance is so close by, I would just walk myself to school. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, then I would need to have like a guardian to pick me up after school. But that would be my like thing. I will always be the last kid to be picked up
Mm-hmm.
because of that reason. Usually, my older sister will pick me up and then we'll walk back home, and that is just like the norm growing up. And like we usually have later dinner because I was too young to cook or even handle that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know how to, go through the pantry and find whatever I could.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was older, around high school, after school we usually stay at school. We don't just go home or take the school bus and have play at someone's or neighbor's kid's home or something, because there is extra tutoring if you need. And of course, it's like extra money, but you can do that in school or you can go to like the Kumon outside, and
Mm-hmm.
take extra courses. And during high school, because there's like a big exam where um, the whole all the students in Hong Kong have to take it, right? Once you reach a certain age to see if you have like good enough grades to get into Hong Kong like universities and colleges. So in order to prep for that one, we actually have to take like more trainings or, like just stay back and, study as much as you can, to a point where I don't get home until 9 or 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually just like get like a food stall and like buy some snacks and then take it as the dinner. And I rarely see my parents because of that, but also knowing like everyone is super stressful
Mm-hmm.
just to prep for that exam. So we definitely have a better environment here.
Mm-hmm.
And also that kind of like brings up to like why I would love to have my son, who is 3.5 right now, to kind of even go through that, some way or the other,
Mm-hmm.
just so that like they know how hard it can be, but also be trained for that.
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing as a parent to figure out like how and where to push your kids to help them, go through a natural suffering, if you will, to get them to like really appreciate what they have, right? A lot of times, like I lived in Peru for a couple of years, and a lot of times my kids will complain about what we're eating, and I'll say, well, let's get on YouTube and look at like what the kids in Peru are eating. And a lot of times we pull up this one cute little girl that's in the Amazon rainforest, and she's like 4 or 5 years old and cooking the dinner for the family. And I'm like, look, like be grateful for what you have. So the fact that you had to go through some of those tough times, maybe at the time was stressful and really hard, but now it sounds like you learned so much from it that you want to figure out a way to push your own son through that in a way, right? In a safe way to help him also be grateful for what he has. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think like even when we first met, right, family is my everything, is my
Mm-hmm.
first priority. And until this day, it still remains the same, especially after becoming a mom. I'm like trying to balance like my career and also taking care of my son. It's like trying to think through what is the best for him, right? Because he is in a really good spot, being born and raised here in the US. But at the same time, like I said, I want to also put him through some of that so that he knows um, what is best for him,
Yeah.
and also have the ability to think through like what other opportunities there are, especially now with like AI and all these fun
Yeah.
stuff coming up. So it's going to be an exciting future for them.
That's awesome. What advice do you have for up and coming women who are maybe in college at this point listening to this, thinking, I don't know what direction to go. Like, do I work? Do I be a mom? Do I do both? And I know you've gone through that battle internally and tried to like figure out what you want to do long term. I think you have a pretty good handle on it now. But like looking back on those lessons, what advice do you have for some of them going through it right now?
So for all the women out there, if they're debating like trying to do well career balance, right? Or even how far they want to go to. Honestly, I don't have like really good recommendations because I feel like I haven't handled it the way I would love to. But I mean, we made it through, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I really wanted to see like how far I can go,
Mhm.
as far as like also proving my worth and also having like a campaign or even a project that I'm proud of that I can tell my kid like, oh, you see that out there? I did it. But at the same time, I didn't regret like also taking a break or taking time to really think through what I want. So for me, when I had Jackson, my 3-year-old, right after maternity leave, I earned an MBA. I went on and started registering for an MBA course and wanted a degree to really know that, like, hey, I haven't lose it or I am still in the game, even though I'm tired, I'm recovering, but at the same time, I want to still know, like, because people say you will have like a pregnant brain or after you have a baby, you get a
Yeah.
little bit less smart in a way. But I wanted to prove that wrong. And I also want to show that I can do it. So I earned my MBA within like 6 months.
Wow.
It's just an online course, but at the
Yeah.
same time, because I had the time to really get that done, and that feels good. And
Yeah.
also kind of did something to tell myself that like, hey, I still got it, and it's not the end of the world. Being a mom doesn't mean anything at all. You can handle both at the same time and still enjoy your time after 5 p.m.
Yeah.
You can just be a different person. You can still be professional.
I love that.
So yeah.
Um, let's talk about imposter syndrome. I see even in what you just explained, I see both sides in you, and we've talked about this since the beginning. You are so much more valuable than you give yourself credit for. The amount of stuff that you did for me on my team at Young Living, I don't know that I would have been able to find anywhere else. The perspective that you brought, the lessons that you brought to the table, the way you led the team, and then I hear you say like, oh, I don't have anything to hang my hat on, right? That's simply just not true, Allison. Like you are amazing, and I'm sure that your current employee feels the same way. You do amazing things. So that's one side of the imposter syndrome. But then you take some of that and you sort of bottle it up and get this energy that's like, I'm going to prove the world wrong. I'm going to prove the culture wrong. You say there's this pregnancy brain. I'm going to go get this MBA because you say that I can't, right? So help me understand what's going on in your mind. You have both of those like sort of fighting against each other, and it's not uncommon. I don't think it's uncommon. I think a lot of people go through it, but like, what are your feelings and thoughts when you're having those conversations and you lean to one side or the other?
Well, I think the biggest thing is like I learned it from you, Eli, actually, to be humble, right? We go through a lot, and I think being humble is kind of become my motto. Is like there's so much to learn, honestly. So I don't want to be like, oh, I've made it once I've got an MBA, or anything, or I have helped the company make millions of dollars because that is simply just part of the journey, right? There is so much more that like that I still haven't learned. There is so much more, so much in the world of like in the digital world, right? There's every day new apps, new AI features coming out. There's
Yeah.
just like so much you can do to change like the way we work, 180. So um, I am constantly having those moments, as I'm like getting tired, I'll be like, oh yeah, let's slow down a bit. But there will also be this like spikes every
Yeah.
now and then to be like, let's do more. Let's see what kind of like groundbreaking ideas we can come up with. So it really depends on like my team or who I talk to,
Yeah.
especially Also depend the day of the week, right? Like Friday will probably be like more Mel would be like, okay, let's take it slow. We can just like have enjoy the weekend and not think through things. And when it's Monday, it's like, okay, let's go get it. What can we do?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's okay to have those ebbs and flows, and I applaud you for your humility. So you won't tell yourself this, but I will. You're amazing.
thank you.
So Allison, let's dive into what you're currently working on. What gets you up in the morning? What excites you right now?
Well, honestly, well, kind of like what you mentioned in the bio, I help like a few different smaller businesses on the side to understand what their needs are. They're usually pretty small and doesn't even know where all the free resources are. They're not as like tech savvy, or they are just very used to the traditional retail selling and don't know a lot about digital marketing. So I've been helping them and help consult and let them know some of the best practices without breaking their banks.
Yeah. I love that you do that. We talked about this a lot when we worked together, where the majority of our team had a side hustle and we were always doing something on the side, right? And what I love about that, and maybe you can tell us if you've had any aha moments from this, but I loved having the side clients where I would learn something and look at the data and be like, oh, wow, that worked. And then go to my job and be like, we should try this because it worked for this client, that client, and the other, right? So have you had any aha moments from your side clients recently that you've been able to take to your corporate job and really help them excel?
Yeah, so honestly, there are website redesigns. Those are usually the biggest challenges when it comes to being a digital marketer,
Okay.
right? Trying to make sure everything carried over, all the links juices, without breaking the traffic and also still maintaining a good position on SERPs. And that was really an aha moment because honestly, like I mentioned, they're like smaller businesses, so they have like a handful, hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of authority built up on their site because they're still pretty new. And also one of the biggest challenge that I had was that they even rebranded, so they have a new company name. So when it comes to that, is still I need to localize content for them. I still need to make sure that they don't lose a lot of the traffic from their previous company name and all the authorities, as far as like updating all the link building strategies.
Yeah,
So of course, those are easier said than done.
for sure. Yeah.
And it's more like a maintenance thing that needs to keep on working on for the extra few months.
Hmm.
But at the same time, that makes me realize all the little details and really getting back like hands on, right? Checking page by page on all the coding, schema, markup, you name it,
Yeah.
and really keep myself busy even for my current corporate job. So,
The little details matter, right? And especially when it comes
mhm.
to redesigning a website. I have a current client that we just started with, and we looked back 12 months, and you could see in August they had a redesign of the website, and whoever did the website for them redirected almost every old page to the homepage, and they went from like 16,000 impressions a quarter to like 300 a quarter. And so the first thing we did is we went in and we reversed those, and we went from, they ended up putting about 13,000 redirects in, and we were able to slim that down to 5,000 redirects to the right pages. And almost overnight we saw some of that come back, and it's coming back little by little, and it's been close to a year, which is crazy that it's coming back so fast. But the little things make a huge difference. I think you're spot on with that. So if we were to jump into some of the tactical side of things and maybe strategic side of things, for some of the listeners out there who have businesses, maybe e-commerce businesses, for example, that they sell in the United States and they're looking to expand internationally, when they're looking at international SEO, can you explain at a high level, what does that mean and how is it different than just local SEO or national SEO here in the United States?
Yeah, so for international SEO, I would say the biggest difference will be the cultural context and also the technical side of things, right?
Okay.
Because you need to technically optimize for a different search engine in a different country.
Okay.
So we're talking about like even local hosting,
Hmm.
or there are several ways to do it depending how big your business is. Of course, there's a way to just replicate your English website, what you have currently, and duplicate it and translate the whole thing into a complete different language,
Hmm.
using, of course, like hreflang tags for language targeting, or even just build, even depending if the URL is available, because in different markets, they also have a different dot like EU.ca. If those are available and you want to build it from the ground up, of course, you also need to kind of do the same thing, but of course, with like canonical tags, knowing where the original content is from, then you can build English and the foreign language at the same time too. As far as like cultural context, there's a lot more to it too than just using Google Translate to translate it straight from English to what it is that you want.
Okay, so on that note, so how do you manage and optimize content for different regions, like while maintaining a consistent brand across the whole world?
So I think you need to first like centralize your strategy,
Okay.
and also define your tone and voice for your business. But as soon as you determine which foreign language you're going to translate into, whether it is Spanish or any other foreign languages, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's better to have someone who knows the cultural differences
Okay.
to learn the semantic differences in different markets, or even as little as like different states in the United States, right?
Hmm.
But also allow the local markets to adapt the content so they can change up, or when they translate, there must be some context that is lost. And in order to do that, you either have your local team or even have a local translator or someone who knows international SEO who will be able to tell you the difference or give you suggestions and recommendations on how to transform your English content into a different language.
So give me some examples, if you can think of them off the top of your head, of like why you wouldn't want to translate word for word from English to Chinese, for example. Are there some examples or words that you can think of off the top of your head that just don't translate literally?
Yeah, and of course, I think just like how we say essential oils, like going back to our old days,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
that was like one of the things that really helped improve our online presence for Hong Kong, especially when it comes to essential oils. You can say it in two words. Like oil itself is a word,
Hmm.
right? And then also essential oil can be also typed in different ways. So you can say therapeutic oil and also essential oils. So those actually have different search volume when you come to look at it from different tools like Google Search Console.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. So on a local note, just to add a little bit of context or clarity to that. So even in English, um, in on the West Coast, or at least in Utah, we say shopping cart for what we take into the grocery store and put food in, right? On the East Coast, they call it a buggy, right? And I know if you go and look at Nike.com and look at different regions in America, it's called they call them shoes, and in Europe, in some countries in Europe, they call them sneakers, right? And so having
Mm-hmm.
that context change, and so I think the same thing happens when you translate to different languages. There's contextualization that needs to happen so that it actually makes sense and doesn't seem like somebody just throwing it into Google Translate, copy and paste, or ChatGPT, copy and paste from there, right? Any other thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, definitely. And at the same time, I mean, honestly, can AI do the job? Can Google do simple jobs? Yes, definitely. But at the same time, if you do a simple trick as to copying that translated language, let's say Chinese, right? and then paste it back and then switch the language from Chinese to English, it might pop up a different word already.
Yeah.
And that is how you can tell it's not 100% accurate when it comes to utilizing AI or Google Translate.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic of words and context of words, what are your key considerations when doing keyword research internationally versus just in the United States?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, you have to use their local like verbiage, and also understand what people's search behaviors are, because like I said, of course there are people who type like long form keywords or even the whole question into Google search. There are also people who also just um, type in different a mix of English and Chinese words. And that was kind of like the behavior that I noticed from our Google search behavior. Of course, like there were some other improvement that we had to make sure that it really leads up to what people are searching. But a big part of just making it contextually and languagely correct, that already help you outbeat in other like competitors that are also trying to step a foot in that local market.
That makes sense. I know a big part of international SEO has to do with technical SEO. Walk me through some of the steps to make sure that your website is technically sound for some global markets.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned that there are also different ways of like ensuring that your website is optimized for different international search and also different backend that you have to do. But setting up hreflang tag for language targeting, oftentimes there also comes in that rel canonical tags is also just as important.
Okay.
At the same time, we have to optimize it with local schema markup. Of course, different search engines or even, different like Baidu or Yandex, they preferably like chooses different schema markup or different clarifying text to help them rank pages. But nonetheless, they all really need to be optimized for mobile and speed.
Yeah. Okay, so
So
let's
that
say
is
I'm new to SEO and I'm hearing all these words and I'm like, I don't even know what she's talking about. Can you break down just at a high level? Let's go through one at a time. So hreflang, first one. What is that?
So hreflang tells Google or any search engines which country that page or that website is targeted for, and also which language. So when you go on different websites that serve multiple different languages, you will see usually they will use like a EN to represent English, and then dash, let's say CA representing, that means like Canada. And there are like a common list of what people use to refer to different languages and different markets that will shows up usually in the URL. But in order to get it optimized for SEO, a lot of people actually add it to the coding on every single page to
Yeah.
even further tell the bots like which country, which language this page is targeted for.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's, you mentioned in the beginning you can have like um instead of the .com you have .ca or .fr for France or .whatever, right? But another way of doing it is .com / US for US / CA for Canada, right? But then even further along, you can have .com / CA / FR for Canada, France, right? And so when the search engines are crawling the website, so Google's crawling the website and they see all of this content, how do they know, or hreflang is how they know to display if somebody is in France searching in French, or I'm sorry, in Canada searching in French for a product that you have, then the search engines know because of the hreflang tag, which is language tag, we should display the French Canada one because they're in Canada and they're typing in French, right? And so that's hreflang. I'd love a little bit more context on schema. You mentioned schema is important and treated differently in some of the international markets. Can you walk us through that?
So basically, a schema markup is another tag that you add to your website's HTML, and it helps the search engine to give all the extra little details like how many reviews or the product prices, even if there's like a promotion going on. It will help so shows up in the search result and help improve your site's like click-through rates and also being able to provide just all that additional information than your competitors, which makes it like easier to rank for your terms that you're trying to target for.
Is there anything specific that's different from the schema here that you would put on the schema in Hong Kong, for example?
Yeah, definitely. Because also in Asia markets, they use a lot of SEM tactics, not just SEO. They heavily rely on the functionality of the website, and they usually basically the more the merrier.
Okay.
Because everyone is so well in the knows of the SEM world and all the things to make a website or even a web page have the fastest speed, have more information. So basically, there's nothing wrong with like adding as much as you can, but also make sure that it is also relevant in the language.
That makes sense. Awesome. Thank you for that additional context. So now rel canonical, what is that?
So rel canonical, to simply put, is basically you have the content, right? Let's say you have different markets that you're targeting, but at the same time, you have very similar content on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to tell the bots like which page has the main authority, which one was the original, that should be taking credit for all that link juice, as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
That is when a rel canonical tag will come in handy. Basically saying we know the content is very similar,
Mm-hmm.
but in order to help you giving credit to the right page, this is what the canonical tag is for.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. So there's, we supported 80 countries at Young Living, and the United States was usually the first country that would put up a page, and then it would be translated to all the other languages. And in the rel canonical, it said this is the original, this is duplicates, but because of the hreflang, we want you to deliver this one in this country with this language, this one over here with that language. So you didn't get penalized in SEO. If you're not familiar, duplicate content across your website and across the internet is frowned upon. And so having that specifically calling out saying this is not duplicate, we're doing it on purpose, it's for a different audience in a different country in a different language, then you don't get penalized. So that's great. Okay, so that's good for some of the technical stuff. I do want to dive in a very important aspect of SEO is getting external links pointing back to your website, right? Walk me through the process of maybe capturing different links or what search engines look for in Asia, for example. That's where you're currently working on some of your current employment, right? Is in Asia. So how do you go about doing link building there, and how does that compare to how you do it in the United States?
Yeah, very good question, Eli. And honestly, for building up backlinks internationally, there are different tactics, and that's why I keep pressing on like the cultural differences. Search
Mm-hmm.
behavior is like a key component when it comes to being able to get backlinks effectively, because of course you have to look at like the local authority sites. Same thing, right? Local influencers that can help you, bloggers, right? And even local directories, just like how we normally do it. But at the same time, in Asia or in different markets, um, they have different search engines and they
Okay.
cater to different types of content. So in Asia, specifically when in Google, um, there are actually still some black hat SEO tactics that you have to use in order to be able to get links and also get your site to be searchable.
Okay. So what kind? What kind of black hat tactics does it require in Asia?
So if you do searches in Asia, or even in specific like foreign markets in their own language, you will see different results that pop up, right? And I think in the US, you're now getting the AI generated answers.
Mm-hmm.
And in Asia, or at least last time when I was in Singapore 2 months ago, that was still barely starting. And so when I was doing a Google search in Singapore, we didn't have that AI generated answers,
Mm-hmm.
while this is already happening in the US. And honestly, what I'm seeing is that there are a lot of content farms that are ranking very well when I do searches. Even here in the US, when you just do a Google search in Chinese, you're getting a lot of content farm results. And in order to get a link building strategy, you kind of have to play their game. And so you might have to get yourself into some content farm content, or even work with some agencies over there to create those links.
That's interesting. There's a lot of controversy around that topic. I know for sure. Google has specifically come out and said content farms are bad. There's lots of tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, SpyFu that have tools that call out content farms and call them out as spammy. So, what you're saying is that for a search engine like Baidu, it's almost required to play in that game, whereas Google, it's it's frowned upon. So how do you like find that line that's like, let's not hurt our presence on Google, but we do have to do this in order to rank in these other search engines like Baidu?
Yeah, and it's interesting because like Baidu definitely has its own search engines algorithm. They even have their own search console that is only in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely harder to get into. And of course, a lot of the questions that we see, or the search results that we see in Google, they are like Quora, but in all
Okay.
Chinese.
Yeah.
Right. And so there are also content farms as to they are like online publications, but for the most part, they are also being very smart to kind of play the game, as in they are not a content farm because they also update so regularly with like the latest news and updates.
Mm-hmm.
So they are still considered like a content farm because they have a lot of crappy, low quality content
Mm-hmm.
mixed with high quality, up to date news and different articles, to a point where they don't see as those who are new to digital marketing. They don't be treated as like, oh, this is just a website with a ton of different low quality content, but they have like a mix of things to make it appear less spammy to Google. So that's why they are actually still ranking and showing up in Google search results.
Nice. Okay, I love that. Now you brought up another point that I want to talk about. If I am looking to expand internationally, and I know these other search engines like Baidu and Yandex exist, do you recommend that I go and sign up for their search console and their analytics version, just like Google has all these tools? These other search engines also have those tools. So if I am able to speak the language, is it recommended to go and install those on the website? Do I get different data from them than I would from Google, or is it very similar? Walk me through that.
Yeah, they're definitely different. And so the local search engine, whether it's Baidu in Asia, in China, or Naver in Korea, in Yandex, they are all going to give you different results, because people who use this, like simply put, people who searches on Google have a different search behavior than people who search on Yahoo.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing applies. And honestly, Google Translate will translate the whole page for you. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
But of course, even if you don't speak that language, feel free, to utilize that online translation to kind of at least give you just that little bit much of a insight that is going to boost your business a lot more than not having that insight.
Yeah. Have you been able to find data in Baidu that you've been able to sort of incorporate to make other countries more successful? Maybe some aha moments where you're like, oh, I didn't know that was happening. Let's try and experiment that in the United States or other countries. Have you seen that, or does that maybe not happen because of the way their algorithms work?
So honestly, it is going to be very different. And what I found is that people look for different things. So just like how we go through the checkout flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we first come to the business, whether or not a product or the brand name attract us, we'll check out what they sell. And then I think for one of the business I'm helping consult with, what they see is that they are actually interested seeing in like the product story. So they go through a different flow when they go on a website. And that is what really changes our content strategy, our internal linking strategy to be able to add in different internal links and send people to the right pages so that they can look for the information, or even change our content strategy to include like our story and a little bit more company information throughout the landing page to help improve the conversion rate.
Hmm. Nice. Okay. So much to think about. Before we move on to the next section, are there other tips or strategic advice that you would offer up to people who are looking to expand internationally?
Yeah, if they are looking into expanding, depending where they are, right? Because there are different data privacy laws that they need to really consider.
Okay.
Like there is the PDPA and GA, and then there's the GDPR in Europe. So do simple Google search. There are a lot of different seasoned marketer that talk about it in different forums, or even asking different questions in Reddit, talk about how they go about doing it. And those are usually the really good free resources.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call out. I remember there were specific laws in Japan where you had to do, the way that they collected data was a specific way. I remember in Taiwan there were different ones. Some countries I remember even still had you had to like print out paper, fill it out, take it in for depending on the type of industry you're in and stuff. But lots of different rules and things that you don't think about. Now, if I could just share a personal story, around international SEO, I know that there are some major complexities around building an actual business internationally. And from the technical side of changing your URL to the hreflang, canonical, schema, all of that we talked about, um, I think that if you want to experiment, one thing that I've done with one of my coaching clients as an experiment is they were already ranking in Germany, and they were already selling products in Germany. They just wanted to rank better in Germany, but didn't want to translate all of their English to German. They didn't want to create a whole new website where they had to manage multiple websites and stuff. So one thing that we did, which seemed to make a decent impact, was we create a one landing page where we put all of the products that sold well in Germany on that landing page. We talked about, hey, popular items shipped to Germany. We said the words Germany a few times. We used different keywords like that were popping in Germany. We also did duplicate a handful of blog posts, and we did translate them into German and put those on that page as well. And without recreating a whole new German landing page or a German website, that one landing page started converting a lot more than just the products that were selling already in Germany. And so we've expanded that experiment into Canada and other parts of Europe as well. So if you're a business out there and you don't want to duplicate your website or worry about all of the technical, and you're just experimenting first, you may need to do it long term. But if you're just experimenting first, you don't want to go through all the translation, that might be an option that you can test out. If you're on WordPress, there's lots of plugins that you can use to do translations and see if they rank well before you really put tens of thousands of dollars into expanding internationally. Do some tests and look at the data first, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. And then also being able to optimize it with any free tools, I'm all for it, right? There are thousands of free resources online. Even if you do, there are different free software where you can actually basically tell people or tell the bots as if you're doing a search in German,
Yeah.
and also doing different language. And so you can basically try to insert the keyword and have Googlebot give you the local relevance search result as in you're in German. So those are just like basic little things here that you can see what makes sense, what is showing up for them, and also keeping track of your progress.
Nice. I love that. And if you're a company out there that just says, I don't even know what you're talking about, I need help, both Allison and I offer coaching, consulting packages, agency work. If you need some help, reach out to one of us and we can help you as well. Or both of us. We can tag team on it as well.
Yeah.
Allison, where do you see the future of international going?
Hey, I mean, listen to your podcast about like AI, there's like lots of possibilities. And I think it's not going away. And even with like SEO, right? And I think it is going to be very difficult. You have to really be on top of it. Also follow any knowledgeable SEO expert like Eli to follow for the latest trends and tips on how to get your website up to date with all the different changes. And I think really is anyone can search for the latest updates on SEO, like what has been updated. That information is available online and anyone can basically do a search and know what is going on. But really best digital marketers, they can explain what is going on and think of an action plan to your website, speak for your business and into what is needed to change, right? Whether going through older things, tactics that was working that doesn't work anymore, or something that is still going strong, but you need a little bit more add-on coding, schema, markup, whatever it could be to make it more relevant in today's world.
Yeah, I love it. So at the end of every podcast, I ask two different questions. So the first one is if you could go back to your younger self and give advice, what would that be?
I would tell myself to just start learning AI, just get yourself into digital marketing. There's nothing that stops you. It doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't mean that is less of a person that you're not being a doctor or any high professional, as long as you're happy.
I love that. What books, podcasts, or leaders currently inspire you?
I recently read a book, The 12-Week Year. It is pretty different than other leadership book that I've read because it tells you exactly a lot of things that you can start doing immediately to change the way you lead, to change the way you work. It's a really good book, really short audio too. And I really recommend anyone to really just go and listen and read it.
Nice. Any others?
No, I think, just like what you said, always be humble, keep on learning.
Yeah. Allison, I really appreciate the time you've taken to enlighten us on this international SEO. It's a bit deeper topic than I've talked about in the past, but I appreciate the fact that you've been able to go into the technical side in such depth. And I will put a little shout out there. I do have a free SEO guide that talks about local, national, and international SEO, and it visually shows what Allison was talking about here, where it talks about the different URL structure and the canonical tags and the schema and all of that is in that ebook. So you can get that on my website, firesmarketing.com. In the top navigation, there is, I think it's called SEO guide. Click on that, fill out the information, and you'll get that ebook. So again, Allison, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a busy life with work and family, and I've enjoyed having this conversation with you.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. How can people get in touch with you if they want to?
Well, of course, you can look me up through LinkedIn, Allison Wong, and definitely if you need help with any international SEO or even just to proofread and make sure that what you translated makes sense, feel free to hit me up.
Thanks again, Allison. And for everyone else who is listening, we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening to the episode today. Listen, I know how valuable an hour of your time can be, and for you to take that busy time out of your day and spend it with us, it really means a lot. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking and subscribing on whatever platform you're on. And don't forget to leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about the interview. Ask us questions. Let us know what other digital topics you'd like to hear about in the future. We're here to add value to your life and elevate your digital presence online. If you'd like some help doing that, reach out to me at fireusmarketing.com. See you on the next one.